everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. This is video. It would seem, I can't verify it, but there's lots of videos like this on Twitter right now. This is from, within the last 24 hours, just troop movements. It looks like these are artillery pieces from what I can tell, howitzers and armored troop carriers and stuff like that. So there's been some recent developments, quite alarming. Over here on CBS News, I can't believe I'm even reading this. I can't believe that this is happening. This feels like, it feels surreal that we're actually talking about this. But I guess it shouldn't, because this is a channel that's focused on the last days, the second coming, and we know that things like this are supposed to happen. They've been happening since the Civil War in America, but okay. So this is what they say. Washington. The U.S. has intelligence that Russian commanders have received orders to proceed with an invasion of Ukraine, with commanders on the ground making specific plans for how they would maneuver in their sectors of the battlefield. CBS News national security correspondent David Martin reported on Face the Nation Sunday. Oh yeah, so this is today, by the way. The intelligence indicates that they're doing everything that American commanders would do once they got the order to proceed, Martin said. And it's not just CBS, it looks like it's NBC as well. And I've been watching this other channel, Agenda Free News, or I can't remember. Anyway, it's like Agenda Free News. He's really super good. His whole channel is about covering live news. So I would encourage you to check him out. But he was talking about that. The Washington Post was also talking about this. I wasn't able to find that article. I'm assuming that it was probably on Twitter like this, and I just didn't find it when he was talking about it. But anyway, here's NBC News, Richard Engel. U.S. officials and U.S. official and another person with knowledge of the matter tell NBC News recent intelligence shows Russian military officials have been given an order to go ahead with an invasion. Yeah, this is really concerning. I know there's a lot of people that are following it. Definitely my audience. I'm sure that almost all of you are, because you're interested in the second coming, and this is one of those things. Let me go to the map. Ukraine. So, the thing about it, excuse me. Okay, well, there's a couple things about this. So this is within the last week. And here's the thing about it. Boris Johnson, he's from the Prime Minister of the UK. Boris Johnson has warned that a war in Ukraine could be the biggest in Europe since 1945. Okay, so already that's a sign of the times. Having something that hasn't happened for a long time, and especially now, when, again, like I said in the last video, it felt like to me that pretty much ever since World War II, really, even though we had the Cold War, the world has been kind of relatively at peace as far as big wars go, right? And the Cold War was all about the fear about having a third world war, but that never happened. And we don't know if there is going to be another one, but it wouldn't be too much of a surprise if there is. And so anyway, I think we've all kind of lived within, maybe the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, thinking that we're in a world of relative peace where things like World War II are far in the past. It's never going to happen again. And I'm not saying that it is, and I'm not trying to blow this out of proportion, but this is a very serious situation. We don't know how far this could extend. It may just be limited to Ukraine, but there are because it's a volatile situation, there's things that could happen that could draw other countries potentially into this conflict. I don't think it's likely. Okay, uh, my rational side wants to say that most likely they'll do what they're going to do. Everyone will kind of stay out of it, and things are going to be bad after that as far as the geopolitical situation. There's been talk about, if they do this, if Russia does this, is that going to all of a sudden kind of give, and since no one's going to probably respond to this with, we're going to do sanctions, but, Russia can survive that. It's going to hurt, but they can survive it. But if no one responds militarily in order to aid Ukraine and stop this, will this give the green light to people like China that wants to, they claim Taiwan is still China. They don't recognize it as a separate country, even though that's how the people in Taiwan view themselves, and the United States supports Taiwan. Could that give the green light to China to go ahead and take Taiwan forcibly? Could it encourage other bad behavior throughout the world? Could it encourage something here in the Middle East? Because the reason why, from what I can tell, the reason why we're not doing anything, why NATO and other countries are not doing anything with Ukraine, is because the risk would be too big. Because of Russia has the most nuclear weapons. That's what I've heard, is that Russia has the most nuclear warheads out of any country in the world. So we really, really don't want to do that. If we went to war with Russia, that essentially would be World War III, I would imagine. I don't see how that could be anything other than World War III. So if it wasn't for that, because we were okay back in 1991, during the Desert Storm, coming to the aid of Kuwait, when Iraq was invading. But that was a different situation. Iraq is not Russia, and Iraq did not have nuclear weapons and a large force, so we were able to easily protect Kuwait and fix that situation. But the same can't be done with anything that Russia wants to do. And so, I think Russia realizes that. It's very risky what they're doing. But again, now that this will have taken place in the real world, will China be like, okay, yeah, we're feeling pretty good about it now. Let's go ahead and let's do Taiwan. Don't know. I don't know. And then could things, could things here in Ukraine escalate beyond Ukraine in some kind of way? I don't know how. I'm not going to really speculate on that. But let's just say, let's say that something did happen, which somehow drew NATO into this. If it draws any NATO country into it, then that involves all of NATO, because that's the part of the treaty. That's the alliance, is that if one of them gets attacked, then all the rest of them come to that country's aid. Right? And, you have to think that that's similar to how World War I started. It was because of all these different defense agreements and alliances and stuff like that. Right? So I don't know. I can't really see a situation where that would happen, but I'm not going to say that it can't happen. If it does happen, could you imagine this? If World War III does happen, I'm not enough of an expert to say exactly how things would happen, but I would imagine mostly European nations and the United States, Canada, just like in World War I and World War II, those would probably be the main participants in this world war. Although, I don't know, maybe other countries would also help. I don't know. But if something like that happened, and this is something I kind of wanted to talk about in the last video, with the world being busy with World War III going on up here, down here in Israel, would that make it so that since we couldn't devote our resources to protect Israel, that would give the green light to anyone who wants to destroy Israel to go ahead and do so while everybody else is preoccupied up here? Is this how the final war happens, right? Leading to the siege on Jerusalem. It could be. It could be. I think most of us have kind of viewed it as just like all it's going to take is for Iran to get their nuclear weapon, and they're probably just going to go ahead and do it, and that's what would cause that's what would cause the final battle. But maybe there's other steps that have to come into play before that happens, and maybe we're looking at one of them right now. And the thing about Ukraine is that it's become clear. I should have pulled this up, but through multiple news reports, that it looks like Russia's looking at a large scale invasion, not just taking over here Donetsk and Luhansk, but like a lot, possibly the entire country. There was talk about the number of what was it called? Well, basically they were battalions, certain types of battalions, and experts had thought, oh, it'd be crazy if they got to like 110. And it turns out that what they actually have is something more like 150. Those aren't actual numbers. I mean, that's kind of close to the actual numbers, but I can't remember the actual numbers. So what Russia is doing is actually blowing the experts' minds that Russia's so determined to do this, like beyond determined, right? Let's read a couple other things. This is from The Hill. Who is this talking? NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. Last week, actually, Russia said that they will step back. Russia's stepping up with more troops and higher and even closer to the Ukrainian border, Stoltenberg said during an appearance on CBS's Face the Nation. Also, the fact that now this is from today, by the way. Also, the fact that this exercise, they said, should end today, will now continue. So all of this fits into the picture that Russia is preparing for an invasion of Ukraine. He added, referring to joint Russian military drills in Belarus. So that's right up here. So drills were supposed to end today, but no, surprise, they're continuing. All that at the same time when you have attack helicopters that are getting into position, like all these different units, like we just read, are getting into position for and the what's it called? The Olympics are drawing to a close. I think it actually ends sometime within the next 24 hours. When do the Olympics end? Well, it's today. I wish I knew exactly what time. I was watching that other guy, and I think we're now less than 12 hours from the Olympics having their closing ceremony in China. There's been talk about how Putin may not want to do this because until the Olympics are over, because they wouldn't want to upset China, right? China is basically an ally of Russia, and so it's like, hey, could you do us this one favor? We have the Olympics right now. Okay, we'll wait till it's over, and then like immediately do it. So that's the situation. You know, who knows? And the thing that's kind of shocking to me is that no one really knows what's going to happen. You know, when we have invaded countries, like when we invaded Iraq and Afghanistan, it was kind of clear what our intentions were, what we were planning to do. But there's we don't know really anything about what Russia wants to do. It's not clear. There's just a lot of assumptions. That's why everyone's like, oh wow, it seems like they're really, really serious about this invasion. So it wasn't clear because up until a certain point, people were like, well, they just probably want to do this. But no, they're looking at a large scale invasion. It seems like it's probably going to involve the entire country. Yeah, at this point, it wouldn't be surprising if they try and install a new government, or who knows? Who knows what's even off the table? Maybe they're just going to annex the entire country. Maybe there's going to be no more Ukraine after this is over. Maybe what we're looking at right here, is going to be the new piece of Russia. Don't know. We have no idea. And then, if Russia succeeds with what they want to do here, what if they do that to other countries? What if they do that to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania? What if they do it to Finland? I don't think Finland is part of NATO. Let's see. Is Finland part of NATO? I don't think that they are. Finland participates in NATO, and okay, they're not. Together with Austria, Cyprus, and Malta, Finland and Sweden are the only EU states that are not members of NATO. And I know there's been a lot of historical kind of like conflict and stuff between. Anyway, I don't really think Finland, but you get the idea. What if they come down here and they go after Georgia? You know, who knows? Because from what I can tell, the general idea is that Putin wants to kind of like reestablish Russian greatness, not necessarily the Soviet Union. I mean, maybe the Soviet Union, 2.0, but he wants to reestablish Russian greatness, right? It was a big injury, like an emotional injury to them, that the Soviet Union fell apart. Putin was part of the KGB, and he's written books. He wrote a book specifically about Ukraine and how Ukraine really is the same people as the Russian people, and that and it's actually required reading among the military. They're supposed to be essentially indoctrinated into that. So who knows how far his aspirations go? We've seen this happen before. We saw it happen in Germany, right, with Hitler, who wanted to kind of reclaim these lands that used to be kind of part of Germany, really not like separate. So that's what they were doing. They were going over here, Poland and stuff like that, in Austria, historical lands that were connected to what was before the modern state of Germany. So are we seeing this again? Like, it seems so unbelievable. It's so hard to wrap your mind around. But is that what Putin is? He the new, essentially Hitler? And when I say Hitler, I mean dictator like Napoleon, that wants to, wants domination. Wants to extend domination as far as possible. And the thing about it, okay, how old is Putin? How old is Putin? He's 69 years old. Okay, and this is a thought that I've had. He probably only has like 20 years left, if that. He's coming to the end of his life. And if you're already living with so much power and so much luxury, you're essentially playing games with the world. That's how much power you have. As his life draws to a close, maybe he feels like now's the time. You know what? Let's just do it. I'm just going to use the rest of my life. Let's go as far as we possibly can. And in the process, I'm going to immortalize my memory of having brought Russia back to its powerful state of being. I'm going to reestablish the empire in some kind of way. Who knows? But he essentially sounds like a crazy person. And that's what all the experts have been saying. Everyone's wondering, like, what are you do? Do you understand what you're doing right now? he's coming across like a crazy person. We have a crazy person that is in charge of one of the most powerful countries in the world and with the most number of nuclear weapons. Is that off the table? You know, um, the fact that okay, so stepping away from Russia and Ukraine for a minute, the fact that we have nuclear weapons and that they've only been used the one time. And when I say one time, I mean, Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all that. Um, just once in World War II, just the fact that they still exist, I almost feel like as part of the last days, they could be used again. Now, I don't think like all crazy, like a nuclear holocaust and, yeah, you know, um, but they could, they could be used once or twice or a couple more times. Who knows? Who knows? Um, I don't really expect nuclear bombs to ever uh, hit the U.S. or Canada or anything like that, but maybe somewhere over here in some conflict, whether it's China or Russia or somewhere in the Middle East, I wouldn't be surprised if we have at least like one incident before the second coming of a nuclear bomb being used. Um, but the fact of the matter is, it's just so much speculation. But what we can say for sure is just like what Boris Yeltsin, or sorry, Boris Yeltsin, Boris Johnson, Boris Yeltsin. Oh my gosh, I'm still living in the 90s. What Boris Johnson said, talking about the biggest war in Europe since 1945. That is a fact. That's a fact, and it seems like it's all but certain now. It seems like there's at this point there's no stopping it. The order seems to have been given. Multiple people are reporting that. I feel like we're going into uncharted territory. Like seriously, this is so in the 21st century. This is so strange and bizarre, and all we can do is wait and see how bad it gets. Maybe Russia will do what it does. Everyone will kind of like let it happen, and then maybe things will kind of go back to normal, and that's it. And it's just going to be just like Crimea. I was blown away that Crimea was just taken. It was just taken from Ukraine, annexed, and everyone just like let that happen. I remember when this happened, I was like, "Are we serious? Are we? No one's going to do anything. We're just going to let them do that." And of course, because like, what's anybody going to do? What is anyone going to do? Maybe this emboldened Putin. He's like, look, we took part of Ukraine. Let's just take the whole country. I'm probably oversimplifying things. I'm not like a expert in these matters, but you can see how that might have been kind of like part of the initial. Maybe this was all part of a big plan. Like in this, Crimea was just kind of the first phase. It was just kind of testing the waters a little bit, see what everyone would do. Trump's gone now, and I must say that if Trump was in office, this probably wouldn't have happened. It doesn't really matter how you feel about Trump. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to think that Trump probably could have prevented this in some way. But we have, I don't mean to get all political, especially on Sunday, but, Biden is viewed, I think, as weaker. Maybe that was part of what Russia was looking for before they went ahead and did this, was a weaker U.S. president when it comes to national security and defense. But it's happening, and I feel like this is not just a sign of the times. I think it's a big sign of the times, especially if this somehow escalates beyond Ukraine. Then, oh boy, that we are going to be living. We're already living in Bizarro World, but man, is it going to be really Bizarro World after that? Yeah. Well, I guess that's all I have for this one. So let's pray for the people of Ukraine that may not have any freedom anymore within the next several weeks, um, who may not even have a country anymore, potentially. I mean, even if it's still a quote unquote country, Russia is, if they don't just outright take Ukraine, uh, then they're going to, basically make it a puppet state. So I don't think there's any doubt that Ukraine is within weeks of losing its country. And and another thing to think about, because I'm thinking about the temple in Kyiv. Um, we're supposed to have one in Russia too, but with what's happening now, could that potentially change? Because if things like become more aggressive between Russia and the United States, maybe there's not going to be a temple in Russia anymore. Who knows what he'll do? Basically, nothing's off the table, I don't think. Maybe he'll try and bring back socialism the way it was during the Soviet Union. Maybe he will bring back the Soviet Union. That would be insane. If like all these years they've had a plan in the works of like, okay, how are we going to come back? Maybe it's just been a matter of time, and now that time is here. And now with Russia or with China being as powerful as it is, because China wasn't really a big player during the Cold War. The rise of China has only been within like the last, I feel like I started to hear talk of it kind of like in the 90s, especially like the late 90s, but certainly within the last 20 years. So now that Russia and a potential Soviet Union would have China as like an actually useful ally, maybe it'll come back. Maybe it'll come back, and then what we'll have is something way, way worse. If not World War III, something way, way worse than the first Cold War. So, I feel like there's not, outside of groups like this and people that are like really into this kind of stuff, whether it be Second Coming or just kind of, the group. America at large, it feels like there's a lot of people not really following this too much and not realizing just how much this could actually affect everybody's lives, depending on what happens. But this really could, it's certainly, no matter what happens, it's going to affect everybody, I think, financially, right? It's going to affect economies. It already has. With like the stock market and then other things as far as, I mean, because Russia is Europe's main, from what I understand, they're like the main supplier of oil to Europe. And that's actually part of the reason why, especially countries like Germany, do not want to speak out against Russia and what's happening, because they're dependent. I lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was saying. I can't remember. That just happened. The economic fallout from this. So, maybe there won't be a World War III, but who knows how this is going to affect the world economically. But in the short term, probably not good at all. So it probably will affect us over here, even if we're not involved with this. And then if it gets really bad, if we have a third world war, well, that's going to be really bad, because then we're actually going to have troops fighting. People are going to be losing their family members fighting in this war. there's going to be a lot of death and destruction, and gosh, again, this is so just bizarre to me that we're even talking about this right now, that this is even a possibility, that in the 21st century, this large country, Russia, is going to be invading, and not just a small invasion like Crimea, but a large-scale invasion of some sort of another European country. Something that we have not seen since World War II. Gosh. Okay, I'll end it there. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Make sure to leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share this, and I'll talk to you guys later.